Hello, welcome to the Green Room for DisrupTV, where we get our amazing guests, little insights. And of course, I'm here with my amazing co-host, Vala Afshar, our producer, Elle, and more importantly, you, our audience. We've got some great guests. I'm going to introduce them in reverse order of appearance like we normally do, ask them where they're coming in from, and of course, give us a snippet of what they're going to be talking about today. So Sheri, where are you coming in from? What's new?
I'm coming in from Denver, Colorado, where it is very sunny today and warm.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you've got a new book. Really excited to talk to you about that. So, Lord Lucy, where are you coming in from? We also see Prime Minister Malcolm here. What's going on? Where are you guys coming in from? Lord Lucy?
Well, we're usually in Sydney, but that would be like 4 a.m., so it's not a great time to talk. But currently we're in New York, so it's possible to talk with you guys in this time zone.
And it's just come a nice sunny day, which it wasn't an hour ago.
Enjoyed the parks, enjoyed the weather. New York in the spring is some of the best weather. Dr. David Bray, we know where you are, but we don't know where you are. Where are you coming in from?
I am slightly south of Malcolm and Lucy. I'm in the blast radius of Washington, D.C., where it is not sunny at the moment. It's rainy. And I'm excited to be talking about the changing nature of leadership given our AI era.
Yes, this is going to be an amazing topic, and really looking forward to it. With that, let's turn it back to Elle for the count.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests, your questions, and we'll do our best to answer live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see my good friend on television almost daily. I see him on Fox Business, Bloomberg, CNBC. He's, in my humble opinion, one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Mr. Wang, to DisrupTV.
Always the kindest introductions. I'm here with Vala Afshar, Chief Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Autonomous, Boundless, all amazing books on Amazon and #1 bestsellers. These are paths to the future, and you must read in the collection. Executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational and innovative tweets. They're insightful, and more importantly, when he's not leading keynotes or Salesforce, he's speaking around the world, and you see him on business outlets such as Bloomberg, ABC, global news outlets, and more importantly, you can catch him and his insights on ZDNet, especially ones after the show. But it's not about us. We all have amazing guests, and we have amazing third co-host all here at once. So who do we have to kick it off today, Vala?
Please allow me to properly introduce our guests. And I've had a very difficult time shortening their bio because I only have an hour. We are joined with Malcolm Turnbull, former Prime Minister of Australia, Lucy Turnbull, former Lord Mayor of Sydney, Australia, and David Bray, CEO of LDA Ventures. Malcolm Turnbull was the 29th Prime Minister of Australia. Prior to entering politics, he enjoyed a successful career as a lawyer, investment banker, and journalist. Malcolm co-founded the first big Australian internet company, which was listed on the NASDAQ, and it was sold to WorldCom. Malcolm entered the Australian Parliament in 2004, and during that time served as Minister for Environment and Water Resources, Minister for Communication, and Prime Minister from 2015 to 2018. During his time as Prime Minister, Malcolm delivered an economic growth agenda that led to record job creation on the back of cutting personal and company taxes. His government embraced on the largest peacetime expansion and modernization of Australian defense forces and defense industry, including commissioning 54 new naval vessels. Since leaving politics, Malcolm has resumed his business career and regularly speaks at global conferences. We're so honored to have you. Welcome back, Malcolm, to DisrupTV.
Yeah, great to be with you. Thank you.
Again, apologies. I massively shortened your bio.
Don't worry.
We're also honored.
Everyone's got access to Wikipedia, right? So you don't.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, it's 10% of what you've accomplished at best. Lucy Turnbull, former Lord Mayor of Sydney. Lucy is an urbanist, businesswoman, philanthropist with a long-standing interest in cities and technological and societal innovation. From 2015 to 20, Lucy served as inaugural Chief Commissioner of the Greater Sydney Commission. Lucy was the first female Lord Mayor of the City of Sydney. And in 2011, she became Officer of the Order of Australia for distinguished service to the community, local government, and businesses. She has served as a board member of multiple not-for-profit cultural and not-for-profit institutions. Lucy has also sat on private and public company boards. Lucy was awarded an honorary Doctor of Business by University of NSW, and in 2016 was appointed adjunct professor and at the faculty of the built environment. Lucy was awarded an honorary doctorate of letters from Western Sydney University. We're delighted to have you back on Disrupt. Welcome back, Lucy, to DisrupTV.
Great to be here, Vala, and to see you again.
Great to have you. And of course, we have our first ballot Hall of Fame inductee to DisrupTV, Dr. David Bray, Distinguished Fellow and Chair of the Accelerator with the Alfred Lee Loomis Innovation Council at the Henry L. Stimpton Center. David is CEO and Principal at Lead Do Adapt Ventures. Business Insider named him one of the top 24 Americans who are changing the world under 40, and he was named Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. For 12 different startups, David has served as president, CEO, chief strategy officer, and chief advisor roles. Welcome back, David. Long time no see.
Thank you, Val and Ray. Always great to be here with you.
Great to have you. Ray,
Yeah, no. We're excited to have you here. Lots of great questions. Let's start off with you, Malcolm. As Australia's Prime Minister, you navigated complex geopolitical tensions, including technology policy, China relations. So in this era, how is AI fundamentally changing the balance of power between nations in ways that are different from previous technology competitions? More specifically, do we have to choose sides? Is it going to be different? Like, how is this working in global cooperation?
Well, cooperation is diminishing, of course, nowadays, but competition is increasing. This is a very dangerous, contentious time in the world. But I think, AI, people say AI changes everything, but it doesn't change everything. Countries have to look to their own sovereignty and their own security. We're going to have to be very careful about the technology platforms that we're sort of bolting into our economy, and be sure that they are ones that we can trust, and ideally that they are ones that are managed by friends. As far as the competition between China and the US is concerned, it is widely said, certainly, and I'm not an AI expert remotely, but it's widely said that the US is ahead of China's sort of frontline models frontier models, I should say, by 3 months or 6 months. If that's all they're ahead, that's not going to make a lot of difference long term. I think China has a number of advantages that America needs to be concerned about, and America's friends need to be concerned about. And one of them is that they have much greater capacity to provide the electricity that AI data centers need. China is becoming an electro state at a time when America, under Mr. Trump, is doubling down on fossil fuels. They've invested a fortune into their grid. They're investing more money into renewables, solar, wind, hydro, batteries than the rest of the world put together. And they, at least from a cost point of view and a capacity point of view, I think they've got the ability to, basically outcompete everybody, so that's an issue. But does that matter? I mean, that's the real question. Does that matter? If the Chinese models are made available as open source, which is essentially their strategy, I would think most countries in the world, outside of those very closely allied to the United States, will take them up.
It makes a lot of sense. You're talking about two incredible currencies of the future: data and power, electricity, energy. And Lucy, bring us to boardrooms. Your experience on corporate and nonprofit boards. What should CEOs and board members think about, and how should they develop their AI strategy, recognizing geopolitical interdependencies, and how do they maintain business continuity with a technology that, frankly, in my opinion, of being in the world of tech for 30 years, may serve as electricity for the 21st century? How should boards think about AI?
Well, I think they should think about it with open minds, but they, like if anything for any company board, they have to understand the risks. And I think it's really interesting to compare the way the internet, the adoption of the internet way back in the 1990s. Everybody was so excited. They could send emails to their friends and their family and their business colleagues and anyone in the world, really. And that was, so that was a moment of real excitement and optimism. But then we went through various stages, and we are, through the adoption of, universal access to the internet and smartphones in particular, which we all love and use. I'm not dissing smartphones, and in particular, access to smartphones by young kids and the access to the internet by young kids. We are in a much more frightened and alarmed and concerned state than we were in the early and mid 90s when the internet was being developed. So we have a sort of like people not frozen in terror, but some people are almost frozen in terror, or in a terror-like state, because they can see the risks. A lot of people in the creative community, authors, journalists, etc., are very worried about IP escape. And, people are worried if you ask a really smart AI, what's the best way of saving the planet? And it has the power and the capabilities, it might decide to kill everybody, because that is the way to save the planet as a planet, is actually to kill everyone. So there's a lot of anxiety and concern about things like that. And I think
I was feeling good earlier. I don't feel good now.
But there should be optimism. We just need to understand the risks and mitigate the risks, and make sure we mitigate them properly, so we don't get really unintended negative consequences.
Can I interrupt and ask a question of all you smart people? Why is it that so many of the founders of these AI companies are so apocalyptic about them? I would have thought if you had an AI company, you'd be saying, no, it's only going to be good and be lovely and everything will be great. But, Dario Amodei from Anthropic, for example, he has been quite apocalyptic in some of his forecasts. Musk has been the same. Sam Altman has been the same. I mean, a lot of them. What is this? Is this some kind of negative hype, or are they?
David, good jump in. Then jump in, and
I just want to raise my hand and say the founder of my company.
Your company is not apocalyptic.
There's two things that two pillars we stand on. One is values create value, and the second, business can be the greatest platform for change. Yeah. So I'd like to say that there's clear evidence that and by the way, Malcolm, you're absolutely right in terms of the negative commentary around this sourced from some of these frontier company founders. But my company founder, who gave birth to software as a service, the OG of cloud computing, is on the other side of that argument, that we could actually, in the proper hands, we could lift humanity. In the proper hands. Go ahead,
David, your view?
Go ahead, Lucy.
Talking about boards and indeed the private sector generally is, like Salesforce, Amazon Web Services, all these companies have been operating in a boundary-free, frictionless world since the internet and SaaS models were developed. And millions of years ago, we were leading and major shareholders in a tiny internet services company, and we saw Microsoft, grow and flourish in that SaaS area, and others such as Salesforce and many others. So that sort of coverage of data centers and internet services has been global for a long time. So this question and issue of boundary locking down of access to AI, I find really interesting. It's probably, for all I know, it's absolutely necessary, but is a completely different treatment than has been given to internet services up to date.
So if I could, you're spot on, Lucy and Malcolm, and if I could sort of try to blend together all the thoughts that I heard, and this will be fun. I think you're spot on that we are not doing the same approach to AI that we did with the early days of the internet. Early days of the internet, you could sort of do a decentralized approach. You could connect, anyone could do it. With at least the foundational models that are being sold from the US, these are very data and energy intensive, and they sort of don't allow anyone else to be their own hobbyist AI in a garage shop. And like you said, China's response might be simply to distill our models and make them open weight. And in fact, we think that is what they're doing. In terms of why certain folks are apocalyptic, well, I can't get inside their heads. I am reminded of the late stage Victorian era, where there were railroads and steam engines, and at the same time, an obsession with death and seances and cults. So it might be when the world starts getting turbulent because of tech changes, and that spills over to geopolitical changes, people get apocalyptic. And, and again, since both Australia and US are spinoffs from the UK, yeah, there were death cults and there were seance boards. I'm not going to say that ChatGPT is the modern day Ouija board, but, if it fits, it fits. So what I would say is what I am hopeful for is if we get back to our roots, recognizing that both Australia and the United States were folks that were leaving the UK. In the case of Australia, sometimes it wasn't necessarily always voluntary initially, is we need to put things back in the hands of individuals to do the equivalent of the garage innovation. And I'm actually excited when I see what looks like Apple's going to make a play very much like what they did with the early days of the Apple, where there were mainframes, and mainframes could do lots of impressive things, but then came the personal computer, and you could do things. And I think there's going to be more AI at the edge locally. Now, that doesn't solve everything, because the next thing we need to solve is this whole meme that data's the new oil. One, oil, use it up, it's gone. What we really want is actually data is a form of human voice. And I can choose and enter into arrangement with other people to actually have financial benefit, equity benefit, or non-financial returns, but not hoovering up data, because in fact, if you involve people in their data, they find errors, they make it better. So I think we need to do that. And then finally, I am kind of concerned about any flavor of AI, and there's multiple flavors of AI, but any flavor of AI where the filters are set by a single company. What I think we want, and this gets to Lucy's point, families should be able to set filters, communities should be able to set filters. If you're too busy, you can say, look, I like the Heritage Foundation or I like the EFF. I'll let them set my filters. But if we allow a single company to choose what can and cannot come back from the AI, they're never going to make anybody happy. Our strength is in decentralization versus centralization.
I worry a little bit about that, David. If I could I'm not. One of my concerns about political discourse in democracies like ours is that our media landscape has become atomized.
Right.
People are living in little silos. We're no longer sharing the same facts. And this is a function of the internet. We can blame the internet for everything, but it's also the function of digital technologies that have made the cost of producing content so much cheaper. I mean, what we are doing now would have required an enormous investment in satellite infrastructure, studios, cameras everywhere, cast of thousands, and we're operating now, essentially using consumer electronics, right?
Right.
So what that means is that people are living in little echo chambers of their own, and you can imagine an environment where an AI, if the AI model is constrained in a way to give particular types of answers or particular types of responses and guidance. I mean, it could be, it could be very, very insidious. And there's plenty of people that would be happy to do that, and they're not just in authoritarian, non-democratic countries.
Yeah, so I think you're hitting the spot on. I agree with you, and to add one more thing to the kerosene on the gas fire, by 2030, less than 4 years from now, more than 40% of the data on the face of the planet is expected to have been AI generated. So how do you make decisions as a business or a government when you can't even trust that the data is actually authentic and as opposed to an AI generated to make it look real? So I think it's going to actually create business opportunities for I need a curated source of data. I think that's, again, where you can empower people and say, we will give you the best data on what crop growth is going on in this region of this country or this state or wherever. But I think you're spot on, is that right now we're in an era where if we give too much power to any one entity, government or corporate, to choose what we see. But then the question is, how do you help people at least have the incentive to start to triangulate from multiple sources? Because each source is going to have its own spin, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, one of the big issues, right, is the internet age and the AI age are different. Internet was decentralized, open, lots of players, cheaper, and capital was like interesting. This is centralized. It is few players. It is massive control, and more importantly, it's closed, and only a few players can win, right? As you're saying, so it's centralized control. That's the issue, right? The dystopian nature, I take it tongue in cheek, is because of all this Canadian sci-fi movies we've been watching. But that's a whole different story.
Blame it on Canada? Wait, we're picking another British country.
What do you think, Ray, what do you think? What do you all think of Jan LeCun's different approach?
I think it's absolutely needed.
Yeah.
I think spatial is important, right? Having the spatial models is important, but the spatial models actually exist in a company right now. If you go to Niantic, the founders of Pokemon Go, they actually have the global models. Actually better than what Jan LeCun's building and better than what Fei Li's building already today. So it already exists.
And I think what you're hitting the head on is generative AI is just one tool in the toolkit. And I'm not going to say it won't continue to improve, but right now I think it's showing it's great for being a better version of natural language processing. But if you want to do other decisions, there are things that can actually run locally that are much more energy compute and actually are continuously learning. So I think what we need to figure out is what are the incentives, and in fact, because there are companies like you said, Niantic, and there are others that do world models. There are others that do low energy models that run locally and don't require nuclear power plants, but they have been crowded out partly because marketing, and partly because, at least in the United States, I'll say, some large companies were hoping for a massive IPO as opposed to actually giving you something that's a better screwdriver or a better wrench for these things. And so I think if we can get to policymakers and help them understand, there's other tools in the AI toolkit. Generative AI is not the only tool in the kit. That'll actually solve some of these problems.
Yeah, and it's going to be densely centralized. There's 3 billion parameters on this device right here. It doesn't have to happen all in a centralized AGI approach. Little things and little advancements are going to be there. And David, building on both Malcolm's geopolitical perspective and Lucy's board governance experience, there are blind spots. You and I talk to boards all the time, and when CEOs are looking at geopolitical risks embedded in their AI supply chains, what is important? What are some of those risks and blind spots people continuously miss?
Well, who would have thought we would have had a shortage of helium in April or May of this year? And that might be happening because of events in the Middle East at the moment. TSMC is right now paying 2 to 4x times the amount they normally would pay for helium. So I think the blind spot is we are beginning to start to see the ripple effects of what is happening in the Middle East, where you may not be able to get chips at the same price because TSMC's price is going up. You may not be able to get things beyond just the chips. You may be able to get hardware. It's actually predicted, at least in the United States, that if things continue another month or so, come Q4 of this year, finding just the ability to actually set up additional power connections is going to be problematic for our nation. So I think the speed at which we see geopolitical things unfolding, and as Malcolm mentioned, we seem to be shifting from a world of global collaboration to right now global competition. We'll see if that continues. You have to watch the Middle East. You have to watch Europe. You have to watch what's going on. And what I really think is actually the blind spot is we have not seen viable solutions on the future of work. And the fact that we had in the last week or two booings here in the United States of graduation speakers that were talking about AI tells me that Gen Z is upset and angry. And we see other countries in Europe as well, where if we don't have policymakers putting out solutions on the future of work, things may get more and more polarized, more and more populist. And that might be a recipe for instability in free societies, not just the current conflicts we have going on.
And anecdotally, if you like, I've heard several stories over the last 6 weeks while we've been traveling of, people, young people who are just graduating from college or university in Europe and North America, who are finding it very hard to get a job that they expected to get. It is a real problem. And so if there is an intergenerational, high-level conflict, that will be very bad for everything. But the other thing I've just wanted to mention about helium, David, is, we're involved in, organizations that help healthcare services. Helium is also an essential component of digital imaging for medical purposes. So if you can't run MRI machines or CAT scans or whatever digital imaging you're using, that is a real problem for public health.
This is a question for both of you, Malcolm and Lucy. We have entrepreneurs, young business founders, certainly CXOs that we're fortunate to have watch our show. What advice would you give to a line of business leader or an entrepreneur in terms of getting them ready for this incredible transformation that we've spent the last 20 minutes talking about? What are some of the qualities you look for, some of the life lessons? You both have had an extraordinary career in your servant leadership, improving societies, companies, private and public. What do you admire in terms of leadership traits, and what do we need to spend cultivating and developing to just get us ready for this? Sounds like convergence of uncertainty, tariffs, wars, climate change, energy, emerging tech, new jobs. I don't know. I've never felt more uncertain myself in the 30 years I've been working. So I could use some sage wisdom from both of you.
Oh, wait, I thought we were asking for a friend.
Well,
We're asking for a friend, exactly.
Well, let me have a go first. I think character is critically important, right? And you've got, as a leader, you've got to build trust. I think you build trust by telling the truth and being transparent about it. And that's whether you're leading a business or whether you're leading a country, particularly in politics. I think trust is absolutely critical. One of the problems we have at the moment is there is so little trust. And of course, some people in politics make it their business to diminish trust because they take the view that if nobody trusts anyone, then they're likely to fall for anything. But I think a good leader is a trusted leader, and they have to do that. The other important thing, and this is something that Lucy and I have always practiced. I mean, when I was in politics, I used to preach it as well, because that's what you do when you're in politics. But innovation is absolutely central to everything. And a rather arch friend of ours once said I was only keen on innovation because I got bored so quickly. But whether that's true or not, there's probably a bit of truth in it. But you've got to be, I think a good leader has got to be able to say, just because we did things this way yesterday doesn't mean we're going to do it this way next way tomorrow. Now, you can't, be chaotic, but you've got to be open-minded. There is it is amazing still, despite the fact that we're living at a time where both the pace and scale of change is quite unprecedented. It's amazing how many people still want to be, still are not prepared to embrace change. And the reality is, unless you do, it overwhelms you. So I used to use, when I was trying to explain this when I was in politics, I used to use the metaphor of the surfer. Australians get that. So you can either embrace the wave, catch the wave, and ride it into the beach, or you can try to fight the tide, and it'll dump on you. So that's I think that those are among the key qualities.
Get a clean break or score a corker, as you would say.
Add a couple more. I think entrepreneurs and business leaders have to have a good dose of passion about what they're doing, about the company they're leading, and the purpose and the mission that it has. And they have to communicate that to their workers and to wider stakeholders, the community, customers, developers, etc. And so passion is really important, and passion and purpose. But also, I think And it's really hard to put into one person: passion, purpose, and also judgment. You know, like anyone who's leading a company or anything for that matter, any organization, public or private, they have to have a good sense of judgment. They can't do like crazy stuff and continue to exceed. Now we can think of exceptions to that in the current world, people who've done awfully well, and you wouldn't actually say that judgment is one of their strong suits. But in the ordinary course, I think judgment is important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And you know, like it's the old story. Just because you see somebody doing something crazy and doing well out of it or surviving it, doesn't mean it's safe. I mean, there are stuntmen that can, you know, jump out of a speeding car at 100 kilometers an hour, land on their feet, you know, and walk away. But that doesn't mean it's a smart thing to do.
From a porker to a mush
Amazing. Can you tell us who influenced you? You talked about honesty and transparency and forward-looking and innovation and purpose and mission and passion. Present company excluded, because I know you're both incredible partners where 1 + 1 = 3. Who has influenced you most?
Well, you go first, Liz.
Well, I think you know, people who have worked in organizations. I've worked with. Malcolm's actually inspired me. He's incredibly competent, incredibly purposeful, and incredibly.
But you're not allowed to include.
Oh, no, can't include you.
That's an easy answer.
We've been together for nearly 50 years,
Yeah.
right? So you know, it's a very long term association.
That's amazing.
I find people who have been leading an organization and affected change within an organization, but also with the outside world. And I think people who lead that kind of change and deliver that kind of change are very valuable members of society. So lots of people, I must say, my dad was like a trial attorney and an advocate for like, how many years did you do that? 60 plus years.
Yeah, 60 years.
We called him a Queen's Counsel, then a King's Counsel. He only died recently at 101. And he had, you know, such focus, incredible focus and commitment and passion about any case he was doing. Like, it was every case he did, which you do as a lawyer one at a time, was the most important, the most significant, the most critical case he'd ever done. And to have that sort of sense of
focus
and commitment has always really inspired me.
Yeah. My father was a great influence on me too. Lucy's dad was as well. I mean, and he was a guy of enormous integrity. Can I tell a funny story about him?
Yeah.
So he closed his chambers. He kind of stopped, work, retired from work when he was about 89.
Yeah.
And I said, so Tom, why are you hanging up your shingle, as it were, or giving up the bar? And he said, I've realized you don't get as much work in your late 80s as you do in your late 70s. There it was. But no, my father was a very different person, and sadly didn't, he was killed when he was quite young. But he was a guy of enormous integrity too. So it's very big influence on us. On me, and in particular. But look, I think you see integrity everywhere. But look, let me give you a practical example, because people talk of this stuff in lofty ways, and this is just a business-like example. When I became communications minister in 2013, my party, the Liberal Party, which is the centre-right party in Australia, got elected to government. The Labor Party, which is the centre-left party, had been in office for about 60 years, and they'd embarked on a national broadband network. Perfect. Very good idea. Get everyone connected to broadband. But they'd gone about it in a rather unusual way. It's sort of a kind of a, yes, it was, anyway, it was clear sort of thing that only people with no experience in business would do. But anyway, I inherited it and I had to sort it out. And one of the problems was that because they'd been making so little progress, they'd been inventing all sorts of spurious statistics to suggest that they were making progress. And as a result, nobody believed anything that was being said. So I said, well, okay, we've got to fix this. So we're just going to do it by we knocked up a quick spreadsheet which had in every category of technology that was being used, how many premises were passed, that's how many premises could connect, how many premises were connected, and updated that every single week. And after about 6 months, and they still do that. You can find that on their website. I mean, the network's well and truly built now. So, but after about 6 months, someone said to me, we think you're the only person in Australia that looks at this now. And I said, that doesn't matter. You've got to keep doing it, because once people know you're telling the truth and you're being transparent, then they will trust you. Then they won't have to look it up, because they know, it's okay. They're being open about it, and that was just very, and it solved the big problem, because
amazing lessons learned,
and they could actually trust.
Amazing.
And real quick, if I could,
David, actually, we're running out of time.
Well, I was going to say, I know I want to respect time, but when I met Malcolm and then had the opportunity to also meet Lucy, what impressed me is, one, they embodied everything they just told you, which is integrity, passion, and also building relationships. And I think that's important in our AI era, is if we don't recognize the value of human relationships, then we'll miss on how we get through this. The other thing I would say real quick, and what I really like what Malcolm said, is if you inherit a situation where trust is absent, where people have lost faith, the way you solve it is one step at a time, by basically embodying the very thing you want to do. And that's what I would say to anybody in this environment, is you've got to be a good stoic. Because after I met them, about 2 years afterwards, I had a disinformation attack, and I'm nonpartisan, so I get shot at from all parties, and I don't have the same benefits that being a politician has. And so I just kept my head about you. And as it went through 4 years later, it turned out that what I had said was actually the case, but you just have to keep on walking. And so I would say the way we get through right now, this era where it looks like sometimes people who don't have integrity, or sometimes who don't tell the truth, are currently winning, is we don't shift to their game. We just keep on playing the game the way we are, because eventually those steps will actually be how we get miles ahead as we move forward.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to do a lightning round.
There are, just wrapping up, there are enormous problems. There's a term I read about today called slopaganda. Say in political advertising, AI has the capacity and is already acting to spread the world with disinformation through clever memes and images and AI created content.
Yeah,
and
President Trump used this, like pictures of him as the Pope, for example.
Right. Okay. There's lots of examples. Anyway.
Check out the LA mayor's race. It's actually very fun. It's actually very comical.
But the problem is,
I want to go ahead.
A lot of people can probably tell, but a lot of people are taken in by this propaganda, and we've got to figure out what the consequences of that will be.
Lightning round, 10 seconds each. What is the one question that a board member should ask their CEO right now to prepare for a world of AI and geopolitics? 10 seconds each. I'll start with you, David. We'll go to Lucy, and we'll end with Malcolm. Go ahead.
10 seconds. I'll build on what Lucy said. If our company gets hit with a conspiracy theory, how do we diffuse it?
Ooh, great question.
You can't put a time pressure on a former prime minister and a mayor of one of the largest.
They're just the questions with the prime minister. They're just the questions with the prime minister.
Yeah, I think David's point is really good, but also how can we, increase shareholder returns at the same time as being a civil, ethical, and humane enterprise?
Okay, my question is, who has administrative privileges on our company's network and systems? And who are these people? Who do you know them?
They're agents. There are no people involved.
This is when Malcolm demonstrates he's the most technology savvy world leader out there, because
that's an innovator asking that question. That's excellent.
Amazing. We are so likely to have you here. Please enjoy New York for the next few days that you're there. We have Malcolm Turnbull, former Prime Minister Australia, Lucy Turnbull, former Lord Mayor Sydney, and Dr. David Bray, Distinguished Chair of the Accelerator Stimson Center and Principal C of Lead Do Adapt Ventures. That's for the AI to get it correct, as you know, David. So, needless to say, thank you so much for being here. And really an honor.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Honor and a privilege. Thank you all. Wow. This is the cleanup hitter spot where we bring our last guests and we see a grand slam and it's our privilege to have Sheri Jacobs, author of Unexpected Power of Boundaries. rethinking the rules, risk, and real drivers of innovation. Sheri Jacobs is best-selling author, keynote speaker, and innovation strategist who helps organizations unlock their creative potential by rethinking boundaries, risk, and leadership. As the founder of Avenue M Group, Sheri has partnered with over 300 organizations and surveyed over 500,000 people to uncover what drives real transformation and growth. Sheri is the author of Pivot Point, Reshaping Your Business When It Matters Most, and The Art of Membership, 2 best-selling books filled with practical, no-nonsense strategies for building smarter, more resilient organizations. Known for blending big ideas with humor and heart, Sheri's talks and writings leave people inspired and ready to act. We're ready for that, Sheri. Welcome to DisrupTV.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I have to say, I have to jump in by saying that I had this line as I was listening to the others speak, that trust will be the currency of the AI economy, and that the future belongs to the countries that balance boundaries, innovation, and trust. It's been on my mind, and I also have to say, I think I heard the word boundaries, constraints, and filters brought up more than almost any other word during the presentation.
And we did not gift our prior guest with your amazing book, but it's great to know how aligned your thinking on your latest book, which came out March of this year, is to global leaders, including prime ministers and mayors of incredible cities and countries. So excellent.
Yeah,
Good,
no,
right?
this is important. And when we think about this, you start out with something that's actually counterintuitive. You describe boundaries as a source of power. Most people think boundaries are constraints rather than a limitation. So why do people often misunderstand the purpose of boundaries?
You know, they may misunderstand it when they give the directive, we need a new idea, let's think outside the box. That's sometimes when you hear that they misunderstand the power of it. But what happens is that the individuals who are trying to come up with ideas, solutions, innovations, way to how to solve a problem, if they don't know where the edges are, they are compliant, they stay with what they know, they don't look for new solutions. So oftentimes I find it's the people who are trying to inspire people to be more creative by saying the words like, let's have unlimited freedom. But the folks, the individuals who are there, who are working, need those boundaries, and they know that having clarity around it is really actually what helps them be more creative and to solve problems.
What was the catalyst for you writing this incredible book? Have you been thinking about boundaries? Have you experimented? And what was the genesis behind writing your book?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. And there really was a convergence of different things that happened all at once. One, I've been conducting research on this, trying to see why do some companies, individuals, teams innovate while others don't. And the research again and again kept showing that when people had clarity around what they could do, plus they had that mindset or that culture where they could experiment, they could try things, and failure was a part of the learning process, that's when it helps. I kept seeing that over and over. But then I took this trip to the Arctic. And as a wildlife photographer, I had a complete failure out there, did not get the shot because I didn't have boundaries. And another trip on the other end of the earth, when I was in Antarctica, I got the shot of the trip because I stopped, I had focus. I said, this is what I will do and what I won't do. And the image that I captured there really blew people away because it's just something that you don't typically see. And it happened because I put in those boundaries.
I love this concept of boundaries because it's kind of like the essence of strategy. Tell me what you're not going to do. And once you know what you're not going to do, you can then get to your voice and then get to permissions. You broke the book, especially that way in the structure between boundaries, voice, and permissions. When did you come to that insight that the permission part was really the barrier to the boundaries?
You know, we see it every day. And years ago, I heard someone say that most people who sit in the corner office are 3 levels away, at least, from the person that's closest to the customer, the client, the patient, whomever it might be, right? And so how do we make sure that if we need to get their input, how do we make that happen? Because too often, it's not like survey fatigue. It's not that people don't want to do it. It's survey in action. It is leadership in action when you're collecting that feedback. So making sure that people have permission to speak up. And oftentimes I just say, it's so simple. If you're the leader in the room, speak last. Be the last
This is
one
the
to
frontline picks, right? This is the frontline picks
Exactly.
you're talking about. The folks
Yeah.
that are on the front line, that are there, that's seeing it. The people that, people used to talk about management by walking the floor, right? Because that would get them closer to understand what was going on. And I can't tell you how many times I hear from workers that their management team doesn't know what's going on, and they won't listen unless I take what they have and translate it into a letter to a CEO. They don't pay attention to their own people. It's crazy.
It's exactly right. And honestly, oftentimes the CEO is not going to even get close to them. I mean, the reality is that, but their manager will. And so their manager needs to be able to speak up, or their director or their VP needs to be able to speak up in a meeting. But when the CEO walks in and speaks first, the rest of the meeting is decided. And so just finding ways, regardless of how close you can get to the customer, finding ways for you to make sure that other people have permission to either run a little experiment, give them 10%, don't bet the whole company, but, see what you can do to to empower people to try things, is really a variety of different ways that you can get more people, give them the permission to see what might or might not work.
That makes a lot of sense. We had Jeff Bezos, chief of staff. He was often referred to as Jeff's shadow, Colin Breyer on our show. And he said when Jeff has a meeting, he has a tendency of calling the lowest ranking person in the meeting to talk first. And that way he, eliminates any, confirmation bias or having the biggest titles win instead of the biggest ideas. So it makes a lot of sense. But I will say the most remarkable people I have in my life, they tend to be others oriented. They're the ones who eat last. They're the ones who, share the floor with anyone. And when you're others oriented, I suspect you have some guilt or discomfort setting boundaries because, you're not as accessible. You have rules of engagement. How do you deal with the inevitable uncomfortable feeling when you're actually trying to set boundaries for the betterment of everyone, including yourself?
Yeah, 100%. So there are two things I say. One is you obviously have to get comfortable or just accept the discomfort. I'm not going to say that you can, if you are that giving of a person, and I'll help so many people. But if you are that kind of by nature, you have to get a little bit uncomfortable with the discomfort of saying it. But the thing you should realize is that the majority of people want to know where your boundaries are, and they want to have clarity around it. And the interesting thing is you don't have to apologize or explain. Like I had to be taught, and I've had to practice that if I say no, or I can't do it, I don't have to finish it up with because of this or that, right? It's just simply, I know, but I can do this. Or I'm not available then, but I am available here. And I don't need to provide an explanation or an apology. So those are the two pieces of advice that I give to people who do want to say yes all the time and help people.
I love that piece of advice. Give yourself grace to set boundaries, and you don't have to ask for permission. That's awesome. That's great. I think both Ray and I could use this advice because he's one of the most accessible people I know, which means like I can text and call him Sunday evening and he'll pick up, only for me to realize, what did I do calling him on a Sunday night? It's not even an emergency. But because he picks up, he's kind of given me permission to do that. And now that I'm talking out loud about it, I feel bad. But and I hope he still takes my call, although I think your advice is super important.
I have no boundaries. This is the issue. But I love my craft. But I love my craft.
I know.
Like people call me 4 a.m. I pick up. I'm like, hey, what's going on? No, but it's some people love their craft, right? And that's part of the brand of where you are. But there are some boundary setting mistakes that do backfire, and I think that's an important piece to learn from your experience and wisdom there. What are some of those mistakes that I should be avoiding, other than picking up all those calls at 4 a.m?
Yeah. So one that you wouldn't think, it's waiting too long to set it. So people who avoid boundaries, frustration builds.
Well, that's too late.
Yeah, I know.
It's too late.
Sorry.
But when you know that,
no, please keep going.
When you know that business grows at the speed of clarity. And clarity is boundaries.
Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah.
That's a tweet.
Yeah.
That's a tweet.
Yeah. Well, business grows at the speed of clarity, right? Clarity to your customer, clarity about what you offer, clarity to your employees, clarity to your colleagues, your partners, the supply chain. When you have clarity, that's how fast your business will grow, right?
That's the name of your next book, Clarity. Sheri, you're done.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And so when you asked about what are some of the boundary setting mistakes is waiting too long, right? That is one of the biggest ones that I see. Another one is creating boundaries without consistency. So you're setting that boundary, be consistent about it. So, and yes, people ask me all the time, can boundaries move? They can, but you have to make sure that you have a reason why you're doing it, not just, well, that person asked me, can I talk at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night? And so, right. So yeah, set the boundaries, be consistent about them, and don't wait too long for it, because
if he doesn't pick up on Sunday, I know it was this episode, but I know we're both better for it. So
I'm talking to Sheri, not you now. So
yeah.
So when you know that your boundary may be too constrictive,
good question.
You know, how do you test the elasticity of your boundary? Is it possible that you set a boundary and it end up being a detriment to your growth and your expansion? Like, should we be looking for signs that the boundary that we set is a reasonable one? You know, if Ray tells me I can't call him business hours Monday through Friday, I'm going to be a little bit like, wow, this is odd.
Yeah. Well, you know what I say is, it goes back to your why of why are you doing what you are doing? What's a problem that you are solving? And does that problem still exist today? Why are you doing it? And has the boundaries you set still make sense? So many, many years ago, right, the dawn of like the internet, I was with a startup company that made it, became an industry leader, became the most powerful in that industry, in that space. We set very, very tight boundaries around our customer base. We could have gone after everyone, but we knew that, you sharpen your pencil to break on through. And then once you break through, you figure out, okay, where do we go next? Where do we move? We don't want to just stay within that space. And so we had to go back to why, what's the problem we're solving? And do we have and I call it the capacity, not your tolerance for change, but your risk capacity to then absorb things that may not work. And most companies and most organizations, they don't evaluate their capacity for trying something and failing and then them coming back but learning. They think about their tolerance for change. And if I could change one thing, the vocabulary of most people, let's talk about our capacity for change, not our tolerance for change.
I love that. Focus accelerates. I love that. This is great. Go ahead, Ray.
No, I'm just thinking about this. Like, one of the topics that we worry about is really operating at machine scale in a human scale environment, and not having the boundaries is going to be interesting because machines are going 24/7. They have no boundaries. The human experience is really built on those boundaries. And so it's going to be interesting to think about how we put these all together, because let's take your three books, Uncharted Waters, Art of Membership, and Where We Are with Boundaries. I mean, if you bring them all together, not that you've thought about this theme, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what we have is really a very different participation model in the workforce. And this is really going to change how leaders think about how they build those leadership chops, because there are no playbooks. We're in an era where the playbooks of the past don't exist. And we actually believe that more than 30% of the existing Fortune 500 CEOs will be gone in the next 12 to 18 months because they don't like the playbook. They're not fit for the playbook, and their boards are going to come to the conclusion that existing playbooks don't work. They're going to have to try something different. So we're about to see the biggest CEO overhaul in the history because the games and the rules have changed, and also because they haven't set boundaries. And so this is kind of where we are. So where do you see that, right? That when you bring all these themes together, being able to operate, making sure we don't burn out, making sure that people are able to handle maintaining a long-term success. How do boundaries play that role?
Yeah, I'll go back to the thing I first said when I first joined you two, which was it's all about trust. It is at the CEO level and everything. So in AI, speed matters, but trust scales. Right. And the smartest.
Wow, these tweets are coming, Vala. This is amazing.
Everything is borrowed, and Sheri is giving me a ton of material. That was awesome. Speed matters, but trust scales. That's awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and I've worked with so many CEOs, and I'm seeing the same thing, is that, and then I work with so many senior leaders who are saying this is a directive coming from the board, coming from the CEO, but we don't have the trust here. We don't have any boundaries around what we're supposed to do. We're just saying, find a way to make AI, make our jobs better, faster, eliminate things more efficient. And there are no boundaries in place there. And what I'm seeing is the lack of trust. And I'm seeing that, to me, is going to be the foundation that's going to help any organization or any leader.
And by setting boundaries, by engaging with others where there's a common understandings in terms of the rules of engagement, respecting each other's capacity to serve and mutual reciprocity of value, is boundaries one of the most effective ways of establishing trust based on your research and your own experience coaching and leading teams and organizations?
It really is. And there are two different things. There is constraints, and constraints are put upon us: time, money, resources. We know that. The reason I chose boundaries over constraints is for the title of the book. And I had a long discussion with somebody I respect greatly. And he's like, no, Sheri, it's got to be constraints. And I'm like, constraints are put upon us. Boundaries we set, and boundaries build trust. And there is a distinction in the business world and our personal world as a wildlife photographer, being purposeful about saying, this is what I will and will not do. And even back to, what Malcolm was saying and Lucy was saying about her dad, right? And they were talking about how, one case, right? They set a boundary, and that's the most important case. Then you build that trust. So to me, it is about setting boundaries that you purposefully set.
I like the fact you picked boundaries, because that also speaks to human agency. You've decided, whereas a constraint may be outside your control, boundaries means you're in control of your destiny, agency. So, and with all the respect to your mentor or whomever, you made the right choice with the title.
Yeah, that's why I'm not
Sheri
naming him.
Jacobs.
He's well known. I didn't want to name him. So.
Okay, yeah, no, and please don't, because I don't mean to,
Does he live in Nashville? Does he?
Oh no! Don't say that.
Does he live in Denver?
If it's the person I'm thinking about,
does she live in LA? I don't know. What's so fun?
He's amazing. Okay.
Sheri Jacobs, author of The Unexpected Power of Boundaries, Rethinking the Rules, Risk, and Real Drivers of Innovation. But I love the point: redefine limits, unleash greatness. Book Sheri Jacobs. She's a keynote speaker, 4 times best-selling author, woman CEO. And thank you so much for being here on DisrupTV.
Thank you, Sheri.
Oh, thank you both. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay.
Wow.
So much
We are accelerating time, Vala.
Like innovation, trust, purpose.
And if you're still around, stay in the green room, Sheri. We'll catch up. So.
Boundaries, just like, an hour of just mind expansion. It's no wonder Friday is jointly, Elle, yourself, and my favorite time of the week, because we can reflect on all this wisdom for a long time. Ray, next Friday we have no show. So breaking news, we had a streak of show after show after show, but due to life and business, we have no show next week. But we will, this life gets in the way. Ray and I would do this every day if we could, but we have bills.
We also have no advertisers, so that makes it more fun.
Since we haven't monetized this show for 11 years.
I know. I was talking to someone. He was saying, like, how could you have not monetized this yet? Literally, like, for 2 hours, I got scolded for not monetizing.
I know. This is our gift to humanity, because educating our community is perhaps the best thing we can do to live a recommendable life.
It's a get back.
But we will resume in 2 weeks, and we'll have actually pretty awesome power hitters. We have Bruce Cleveland, author of Market Engineering, and we have Eric Ries, author of Incorruptible: Why Good Companies Go Bad and How to Get the Story Great. Anyway, this is like, buckle your seatbelt, get your popcorn, because next week's show, or 2 weeks from now, will be hopefully as good as this week's. And if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you in 2 weeks.